Welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to be talking about profitability by design. How do you rebuild incentives, rebates and renewals for 2026? I've got a couple of intro housekeeping things that I'm going to cover before I introduce four fabulous panelists who really understand the topic in just a moment. So without further ado, as many of you know, the Channel Focus Awards are probably the most prestigious awards in the industry. They recognize outstanding channel achievement, and they are awards that are completely down to votes from people like yourselves. So please click on the QR code and nominate the person that you think, or in fact the people that you think are basically the right people to receive these fabulous awards at Channel Focus in October. And as a reminder, Channel Focus will happen at the Westin Carlsbad Resort on October the 20th to the 22nd this year. It's going to be a fabulous show. We're already seeing an incredible group of people agreeing to speak at the event in October, and we very, very much look forward to seeing everyone there. And if you register before the 26th of June, you will save $800. So be there or be square, get the best rate, and register by the 26th of June. So I will now have the delight of introducing our four panelists. So I am going to start with Erica, and it's Erica Kosicki of ITA Group. I've probably just done a horrible job with your last name, Erica, for which I apologize in advance. But tell me a little bit briefly about yourself and a little bit about ITA.
Yes, thank you, Rod. And no worries, I wouldn't correct you. So we're set. Erica Kosicki with ITA Group. I've had the opportunity to be in the channel industry for probably longer than I'm comfortable admitting anymore, but going on 15 years, and great place to learn and not only execute the programs, but from a design and a sales standpoint, we're really able to work with clients and understand what their business goals are. I'm with ITA Group, and we work with all organizations across industries. The big focus for us is as a global engagement solutions company, we're able to understand the business results and drive that behavior for you through a design and implementation of our technologies. So a little bit about us. We're excited to be here and share more about the expertise and what we're seeing in the market today.
Excellent. And our second panelist is Josh Medeiros from Unifier. So Josh, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us all a little bit about Unifier.
Yeah, you have it, Rod. So my name's Josh Medeiros. I head up sales engineering and also customer solutions here at Unifier. We formerly were known as Ziff Solutions. You may know us. We've been in the industry a long, long time. Our focus right now and our positioning right now is we see ourselves as the agentic partner experience platform. And I think in terms of our discussion today, I feel like I can lend sort of two bits of kind of perspective. On one side of it, I spend my day really actually architecting and building real solutions. But then on the other side of it, I'm selling net new. So I'm talking to companies that are probably going through some of the same challenges you're kind of tackling and trying to get around and kind of get over. So I think with our discussion today, it's going to be, I have my stats and use cases and a whole bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. So I'm excited for it and look forward to the discussion.
Fabulous. And then we have Lucas Pacelli from Maritz. And Lucas, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Maritz.
Hi, so I'm Lucas Pacelli. I'm probably the newest one in the realm of incentives and channel. I kind of joined here about 3 years ago after finishing my PhD in computational social science, which sounds like it's not related at all, but actually there's a lot of great behavioral science applications in this field. I work as part of with Maritz, who is kind of a long kind of history career, I think, with helping companies in this space, with a kind of focus on motivating people and engagement in that lens. I work as part of the decision science group. So I had a small team of data scientists, and we're kind of on the front lines, really helping companies navigate the world of having a bunch of data. So we help them make kind of data-driven solutions through, anything from simple data reporting to more advanced machine learning and all that fun. I'm excited to be here. I'm hoping that I can provide kind of a good lens from my perspective and that it's beneficial.
And it looks like maybe Rod is frozen a little bit, but I'll round us out here. Well, Rod, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm Omar Fuad with the Alexander Group, and I lead our channel partner practice at our firm. And our firm, the Alexander Group, we're a go-to-market strategy consulting firm. So we help our clients exclusively across those marketing, sales, channel, customer success functions. And as we work with channel leaders, like a lot of the folks joining the webinar today, it's how do we build that right channel strategy and curate that partner ecosystem that's going to help drive growth? How do we put in the right programs and incentives? Obviously, a big lever within that to make sure that we're driving the coordinated effort for that. And then lastly, how do we set up the right people and tools to support that whole strategy and program? And really excited to share some of the things I see with my clients. I have the luxury of working cross industry, so I see some of the things and emerging trends that are starting in one place and port them over as best practices to some of the other places.
All right, I will jump in with this. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Brown. I work here at Bapti. It looks like we did lose Rod, so I'm going to jump in. I do have his talk track, so hopefully I do my best keeping everyone on track today. But really, with the topic we're going on for over 30 years, channel incentives were built around one thing, bookings, but that world is disappearing. So today we are questioning, SaaS consumption, renewals, retention, services, attach, marketplace transactions, customer success outcomes, and AI adoptions. But meanwhile, the CFOs, they're asking the questions, what is the costing? What behavior is changing? What is the ROI? So the real question for this year is, are you still rewarding yesterday's behavior, or are we designing profitability for the future? And that's really what we're going to go on today. And it looks like we had Rod jump back in. So let's see if he's here. Thank you all for letting me do a quick little jump in.
We have redundant systems in place, that's for sure.
Rod, you're muted now. It's our first one of the year, guys. So we're just, wiping off the cobwebs.
Absolutely. I sincerely apologize. My internet went down completely, and so I'm now on satellite connection. So hopefully everyone can hear me pretty well now. And I heard Sarah doing a fabulous introduction there, jumping in. Everything has changed. And we are demanding a refresh. And Omar, if I can start with you, you're talking to a lot of customers. You're looking at the big picture. What are they looking at? What is that refresh? What's being demanded at the moment?
Yeah, it's a great question there, Rod. I feel like now more than ever, channel leaders are getting pulled in multiple directions. The end users are demanding more, and they want more seamless integration of their tech stack. They want more accountability for business outcomes. And frankly, they want more support in defending their budget and their IT spend. And that's putting a lot of onus on the channel. And a lot of our partners are responding with, providing more services than they ever had before. That's blurring the lines of what's a VAR, what's an MSP, what's an SI consultant these days. And there's also just increasingly need for services based partners, whether that's managed service providers, system integrators, and of course where the marketplace fits in. And so you take all that and the ever increasing internal pressures of making sure my CEO is happy, my CFO is happy, and that is leading a lot of companies to rethink their programs. And that's why it is a transformation and not just a tweak. And we recently did a poll, and 80% of the respondents said they were either completed or in process of a major program transformation. And it is really about how we driving pay for performance in our programs, not just in this, volume is king world, but volume plus outcomes plus growth, right? How are we delivering on all those metrics? And the program, the incentives is usually in the spotlight with that discussion.
And you talk outcomes there, Josh. What are the outcomes that your customers are demanding of you today? What's changed?
Yeah, well, I would say the number one thing that's sort of changed, the number one thing that's broken is this fallacy that revenue booked equals value created. And I can tell you over the last 3 to 6 months, and a lot of these demonstrations and kind of conversations I'm having with customers, the concept of bringing in billing, renewal, consumption data, what we're seeing in the market really is a focus now on not just a one-time sale and a rebate or an incentive, but how can we engineer long-term value creation? And what does that look like from the moment a deal is signed to consumption and adoption of a product or solution, and how that gets into some of the customer retention aspects as well. So I think it's not just value, is booked, put the score on the scoreboard and we're done. There's a longer play here that we'll definitely get into in the conversation.
Okay, and drilling down into that, Josh, you talk about long-term value. Specifically, what are you seeing clients measuring? What are they rewarding?
Yeah, I would say one of the interesting concepts I'm seeing now is a lot of these micro incentives. And we're going to get into kind of what we measure and sort of what you take out of a program. But the concept that I give here is like you have a contractor and you pay for the build of the house, sure, but it's almost like you have to have these partners on a monthly retainer for making sure the roof doesn't leak and these things are happening. And some of the very specific things that I'm seeing incentivizing, um, data is going to be super valuable right now. So it's simple things like, uh, the deal registration itself, how accurate is the contact data that's going in. So as we get into some of these other kind of concepts around analytics and AI, it's only as good as the data going in. So the way I answer that is, we have to incentivize the right things, and a lot of that's going to be touching data and where the partners are physically touching these opportunities in practice.
Okay. And Erica, if you look at what you're doing with IGA, what legacy incentives are you seeing customers just going, I don't want that anymore? That really doesn't resonate with my partners today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I echo what Omar had shared. We're no longer doing a one size fits all. It's not everyone's going to just get rewarded on this volume. And the more you sell, the more you're going to get. I mean, volume is still crucial. We still need items to be sold, but what's being sold and what's being incentivized is shifting. And we're really taking it back to the framework of what behaviors do you want to change? What's that desire output? How are we going to get it? What data do you have is huge to Josh's point, but I would say now the carrot is even more, what data did I wish I had? Either at the partner level or at the end user level, because that's allowing us to really design these incentives to be agile, but also very personalized, which is getting people's attention to continue to do the behaviors needed and not just expect more from the fact that they've done a large volume or that they've always received it this way, because we're really shifting from over incentivizing something that can only tap out into really incentivizing to the behavior that's going to create that long-term loyalty and be more of a win-win. And I think that's what we're seeing CFOs wanting in addition to the ROI and the numbers behind it, but the story of is it moving the needle and are we driving long-term behavior that's going to sustain us as the market shifts?
Excellent.
Mhm.
And Lucas, let me bring you into this. If you look at your customers, what are the top three behaviors they need from their partners today? What are they looking for?
Yeah, so it'll vary about the exact kind of goal of the program, but a lot of these partners need to think about kind of like long-term growth and like progress through that. So we see this a lot where there's a focus on kind of short-term value that you kind of generate from a single client, and that's great and that's like survivable. But if you think about your program in like the span of like 5 to 10 years, so it's like we want to think about kind of long-term growth. You want to think about how they diversify, whether they are getting all of your product or only some of the product. That's like a big question. And then in terms of that, and the second is kind of depth. Are we seeing a growing depth and reliance on our program versus kind of others? Oftentimes there's a lot of options out there. And I think with AI in that fun world, we're entering the fun possibility where the number of options is just exploding. So kind of understanding who's in there, who's kind of growing long-term in there, how they're diversifying with your own product space, and that whether or not they're kind of investing deeper within you. I think those are kind of like the three key metrics that I'm at least noticing in my kind of kind of data-centric realm.
Mm-hmm. And Omar, I mean, too many companies start with what rebates should we offer? The best start is obviously what behaviors drive profitability. And if you look at your customers, again, the same question, what are the three top behaviors they're trying to drive amongst their partner community?
Yeah, Rod, it's interesting going back to what Erica said. Now, as I see more clients, I'd say experimenting or being more creative than incentives than they have in the past, where it was just very simple volume-based tiers and discounting. The one of the very contemporary things that I have, it seems like every week a discussion on is retention. And a lot of the boards, a lot of the CFOs are really focused on retention. And so we're seeing more measures come into place around GRR, gross retention metrics there. And a lot of times those are kind of in the spiffs because we're asking those executives and trying to point that incentive at the executives to do that investment, to have that focus within their organization. And Rebates do a great job of that. The other thing that a lot of programs we're trying to instill now is how can I do more with my existing base of customers? How can I drive that expansion, that cross-sell capability? And so you're starting to see a lot more creativity come into the program with even requiring it at the tiering. If you want to be in my top tier of a program, you better be selling across my categories, or at least be, investing in the enablement and the certifications I'm providing so that you have the skills and capability to be able to do that. We're also seeing it down to the partner sales level, depending on if your partner allows it or not, having different spiffs for certain products that you see as your growth that is driving that balanced portfolio spend. That's starting to come up quite a lot in these discussions as well.
I could just jump on to Omar's point. I would say from our standpoint, the personalization has been huge, but the visibility at our field leadership level and just general program admin has been even more precise than we've seen in probably the last 18 months. So I think the quicker that we are being responding to both the market and to what they're asking for, making it really easy to see that data. And I'm sure Lucas can appreciate it's great. But if my data team was here, they'd say more data isn't always better. Sometimes more data is more problems if you don't know the story. And so for us, like hand in hand has been visibility to be able to clearly articulate what that is so that they can have the targeted conversations or relationship adjustments needed. And that has just been so crucial.
And how do you provide that visibility, Erica? What does it look like? What do they want? I mean, there's a massive data that we're getting out of our incentive programs. What are the things that people are responding to, particularly if you look inside the organization? What's the C-suite asking for today?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say we still have the large dashboards, right? The large visible dashboards that can segment and can be more ad hoc-ish as you want. But really, it's what's that next mission? What's that next nugget I need? And so that's where we're seeing really specific targeting on what they're trying to accomplish at their business, both in like immediate objectives and goals, but also like, is it hitting their long term? So to Omar's point, like across the portfolio, are we seeing growth there? And I want that very quickly accessible. I want to go into that dashboard and I want to know that I'm tracking that trend and I want to see if I'm up or down in the last 90 days. So for us, like that piece is crucial. So we're just wanting to really meet our clients where they are. And sometimes that's just quick changes so that whatever their constant source of truth is, it's giving them the actionable results for today, but also am I getting where I want to be in the next 90 days?
Excellent. And I got a great
If I
question
may-
here from Tracy. So I'll come to you in just a moment, Omar. Josh, she wants us to be real specific. Can you share examples of retention tactics that are working? And are there any that are working that have surprised you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I guess what I mean by that is you need to start with that business outcome where, let's say your goal is 90% or better customer retention, working back and incentivizing what those things are. And the specific things that I'm seeing, and I wrote these down as I was going through some data last week, incentivizing partners selling into the right ICP, into the right accounts. I think the other big thing is to the extent that you can measure the adoption after the sale. That's going to be consumption, things of that nature. And I also think, other bits of data you have existing. So we have lots of customers, for example, that are measuring things like ticket engagement by partners, the speed at which partners are kind of replying and getting tickets adjusted. And of course, we get into, customer scores and things of that nature. But I think the overall kind of feel is don't just start with a budget of $2 million in rebates or $1 million in rebates or incentive and work back. You really need to start with that outcome, identify what are those metrics or what are those things that really contribute to it, and then incentivize the behaviors that otherwise wouldn't be done or wouldn't get done. And I think it's as simple as that, but that's really kind of the science behind it.
Excellent. And Omar, you wanted to come in on something there.
Yeah, no, I think Erica brings up a great point with data. It was just give me as much data as I can. And now I think a lot of people are saying, well, what do I want to do with that data and be purposeful with it? And frankly, the clients I have, they're doing the best with the data, create a value to their partners on why they should even share that data. And it could be, I had one client where they just had a lot of trouble getting quality data from their partner. And they just finally went to them and said, look, we need this actually to pay our own sellers and the people that are supporting you and are doing a great job. And so if you can share that data, we can do sales comp and we can actually drive better incentives to retain your CAMs and PAMs. And it was a simple story like that where they're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Let me give you the data. And they were able to kind of talk a little bit about what that looks like and get to something that they both felt comfortable getting.
And Lucas, if I could bring you into this, you're kind of, and I don't mean this in a rude way, a data wonk. As you look at all the data that's coming in, what advice have you got for people? How do you cut through that? Because you want to send a number of very poignant, straightforward messages to the internal team and to your partners. So how do you cut through all that and actually get to the data that's really going to resonate and really going to make a difference?
So that's like one of the harder questions, I think, of the whole kind of data position, especially as we come into the age where it's like, if you've ever dipped your toes into any form of data, you'll realize that we see probably too much. And you're like, oh, that's kind of creepy. And it can be difficult. I always start by you look at kind of key KPIs, right? You look at like what is driving your program, right? Those are the easy things that I think everyone looks at. And then you have to kind of start asking yourself like, okay, so if, total sales is the outcome we want, you start looking at other things. A big thing is kind of cadence and behavior, right? So you want to look at seeing like, is this kind of behavior consistent? Are we seeing that consistency? You can also look at, other things like drop off, right? You want to see if a big thing that we've been doing with a lot of our clients is if you look at your current rules and design structure, and then you just look at your data and you're like, is it how I think it should be working, right? We've had so many clients with kind of like tiered incentives that look great on paper. They check all the right boxes, but then when you look at the data, like 80% of the people don't even experience a single tier, right? Which is like, why have a tiered incentive if no one's going to experience it? It's not doing its job. So like the biggest kind of advice in looking at data is like looking at your structure, what you want it to accomplish, and then just seeing if it's doing even remotely what it should be doing, right? Are you seeing people experience it? And then from there, you can easily kind of make those changes and make those twists that you need to kind of really fit it to your kind of growing pool of clients.
Excellent.
If I can, sorry.
Go on, Erica.
I was just going to say, I also think the timing, I don't know if you were seeing this, Lucas, but we're seeing it where it's not just wait until the next annual business review, like the timing of those conversations, especially on the large one size fits all, the tiering that's always been that way. It's happening now. And it's not looking to change or implement in 27. It's looking to implement quickly. And so I do think that the threshold of timing has also accelerated. At least what we're seeing with our clients is let's be intentional now. Let's dive in. Let's be precise, but we also want to make change relatively quickly.
Excellent. And Omar, I'm going to drag you into this one. I was sitting with a bunch of key executives, VPs of global channels. We were talking about what they saw as the biggest challenges. And one of the things that came up was with the advent of AI, SaaS is all very well, but we are going to be moving to consumption and consumption-based pricing and billing. How's that going to change the way we have to incentivize our partners, the way we have to reward them?
It is a very hot topic right now, and I think consumption is only going to accelerate some of the trends that we're talking about, right? And so if now we're saying, hey, we want to make sure we can drive customer value, and we're thinking about customer outcomes, but we're still in this annual contract world where we're just driving more retention. Whereas when we go to consumption, now that really does drive revenue, and that is a conversation that we need to do something now. And one of the things is, more service partners and really thinking about the ecosystem and what we want to drive incentives with those service partners. So if we think about not just making the initial sale the land, but also that expand, and that's going to be a lot about a usage and adoption and making sure that we're driving that within our consumption world. And so the we're seeing some incentives in those companies that are leading metrics, and how do we incentivize things like training completion, especially with, if they have kind of a center of excellence, a technical team that's kind of given that remit for that, as well as do you have certifications on that? And a lot of companies are, it's interesting, I think they're also doing more, you know, less just revenue sales metrics and other broader metrics. And so a lagging metric nonetheless, but a really good one that I'm seeing is number of successful customer implementations, or even creating a customer case study that you can then use as your own collateral as a channel partner to be even to drive more sales ongoing. So it's really kind of accelerating this shift to services, this customer outcomes based mindset, and making sure incentives align with that.
And Josh, what are you seeing in terms of what your customers are doing
Yeah,
to look at consumption? To what are they rewarding? What are they saying to their partners? How's that changing the way they're rewarding the partners for the work they're doing?
yeah. I mean, there's so much here. I mean, this is probably a whole session just on this one topic. I guess one thing you said there, Rod, is kind of you have to let the partners know kind of what's expected, what's being measured, where they are in the process. So this idea, if you have all this information, you have to present it in such a way that it's real time to the partner. So for example, the best programs I'm seeing, they have a waterfall, right? They're paying 30% up front for the booking. Maybe there's another 30% for milestones tied to activation. And then there's a, 40% tied to consumption targets over 90 days. But you need to tap into these dopamine loops. So for example, when a partner logs into the portal and they see they're $50,000 away from a 2% margin bump, I mean, they're going to chase it. So there is definitely a psychological shift between collecting that big check, that the publisher's clearinghouse check at the beginning of a sale, to experiencing kind of this waterfall approach. But I feel like if you present it, you show how much more money potentially a partner could make over the lifetime of a deal, in a customer value kind of perspective, it's a no-brainer.
Excellent.
And
And
I will
Erica,
say, if I could add to that,
yeah,
I think another key thing in terms of just kind of showing like the clear compensation is making sure that the timing of that compensation is correct, right? There is this like clear window between behavior and reward that you have to hit. This often happens in programs where like the design is great and it's a clear like X action gets X reward. But if like there's a kind of due to kind of structural timing and systems or something like that, where they receive that 2 months late, that's kind of like 2 months too late. Right? Humans are really bad at that. It's just an innate feature. Like we're really bad at associating those things. So like ensuring that whatever reward is like either clearly visible if it takes time, or kind of as immediate as possible. I think that
Wait,
those are
people
like
like things
key
instantly?
metrics.
That's
Who
an
knew?
incredible concept.
Which is only
Yeah.
getting worse as
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of AI
Yeah.
grows.
Or better, yeah.
And I do think that, Lucas, to your point, like communication has to pair with that. So timing is crucial, but we have no threshold for patience. At least what we're seeing with our participants and our partners, they're just not, they don't have it, right? We want the easy button, it's immediate. AI is driving that even higher in both professionally and personal expectations on timing. So I do think that both clear communication on when that's going to happen, and then Lucas, to your point, having it happen quickly after the behavior is so important. And it is what's differentiating those that are being really successful and those that are feeling like it's kind of, just the program that I'm in.
Yeah.
while I've got you on camera, Erica, I've got a great question coming in. Can you share real life examples of incentive programs designed to influence partner behaviors beyond ASP volume or revenue? What behaviors are you seeing your customers rewarding, and how are they actually doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Omar touched on this, but I would say the training and the certification is a behavior that we are seeing a ton of both. Um, it's not even an optional piece. It's just part of the overall loyalty. Like we need to understand that because we then can have them out across the portfolio for products. So that is something that we're seeing real life in incentive programs. And the lift is huge. Like once we're seeing like where their gap is on both where they are now in the certification, the desired level we're looking for, it's not a huge runway. It's actually some really nice quick wins to see that, to drive that, to have them see that immediate, to Lucas's point, recognition, certification, and then get them more comfortable to start getting larger books. And it takes us back to the volume. So the volume's still there. We're still doing that, but we're incentivizing on the behavior that's going to drive that and retain it and keep it. The other piece I would say that's coming in specifically is the customer voice. And I know Josh hit on that a bit, but what are we hearing from that? Why are they renewing? What is happening there? Is it the additional service attachment? Is there an opportunity to the deal that's there? Is it the implementation? Like that nugget of data has been really crucial in how we personalize the design for our partners because some are doing it really well and some aren't even paying attention to it. And it's good data to bring to light.
I have one little point here, it's real quick. We had a customer recently that was incentivizing partners for bringing in the supplier vendor sales engineer early in on an enterprise deal. Because what they saw in the data was that if a partner brought in an opportunity and they could get a sales engineer into that opportunity to start architecting really early, the likelihood of that closing was significantly higher. So that was a great example of something very, very small, but it meant a lot and it was incentivized accordingly.
Yeah, and I think the communication on that, Josh, is huge. What we're seeing is like pushing that and bringing in machine learning when appropriate for what we're seeing in the market, but also just understanding how to circulate that data so that it's actionable at all levels is huge. I mean, everyone talks anyway, but I mean, circulating that so they have a reason to come to the platform, then just check to see if the reward's been deposited is really something that we're having to look at differently.
And Lucas, bringing you in on the voice, how do you track the voice? Where do you get that information from? How do you validate that it's not just, hey, this is representative of one customer? This is genuinely representative of what's going on out there in the market.
Yeah, so this is like getting the core issue of like survey design and data analysis. I think we'll do a mixture, right? We'll send out surveys, which are great. We have to be a little careful with surveys because depending on customer experience, you might just get a bunch of angry people that are like, finally a place to vent my frustration with the program. But like focus groups is where we're getting some of the most success. And you have to do a little bit of targeted focus groups, right? You do it with people you know who are really succeeding with your program, right? Who are benefiting a lot. And then also those who probably can see through the data are probably not as happy. And doing that has brought a lot of great insights, either through kind of interviews or even just kind of focus surveys for those demographics. Is where we've kind of we've gotten the most insights of like where programs are working and where kind of those kind of key friction points that you have to be like, oh, I didn't even know that was a problem that you have to kind of start addressing.
Mm-hmm. And Omar, let me bring you in. I was talking to a partner CEO the other day, and we were talking about incentives, and he mentioned a particular vendor, and he said they could be suing so much better with us. And I said, why is that? He said, well, my sellers have no clue what they need to do. He said they have 16 different incentives for my sellers. They just don't know how to achieve those incentives. There are so many of them. They're getting drips. Why don't they just put it all together, make it one or at the most two incentives so that my sellers absolutely know what I'm trying to achieve? How often do you see that? And how do you cut back the incentive sprawl?
Yeah, and it's something that comes up, interestingly enough, going back to what Lucas said of, having that feedback loop with your partners. A lot of them, when we're working with clients, are telling us, hey, yeah, tell the vendor I got to make it simple, right? Because if the partner doesn't understand it, they won't engage, right? And you're losing all that valuable there. And I think the first thing is really make it simple and make sure that you have the supporting communication out to the partners on how they can win in the program, not just what the details of the program are. And you need to reinforce that with your CAMs and PAMs. Are they coming on site and saying, hey, let me walk you through how you can win in this program. Here's your historical data, and here's what we need you to do different or need you to keep doing so that you can earn the most incentive in this program, and I can maximize the value of being one of our trusted partners. And make sure that your tools also have that. The portal visibility, make sure that, I love my Delta app because it shows me how many MQDs I have to my next tier. And, it drives behavior. On my personal vacation the other day, I booked a trip and, I leaned a little bit to Delta, it was a little bit more, but I love seeing that little bar keep going. So those little type things, making sure that you have that aligned communication, you're tying back to how the partner can be successful and you're making it simple are the programs that do the best. And it does require trade-offs for us to have that happen.
I do think also the you had said keep it simple, and I think from a partner view, it feels simple, but what we're seeing is the complexity of making it personalized on the back end is where we're seeing like really targeted success. Like, so that precision targeting, which it looks so simple to them, right? I have 3 offers and I'm this close on all of them, and this is where I need to go. It's that digestible, here's what I'm going to do first, second, and third to be successful that we're finding. Rob, to your earlier conversation and ask is what's not going to happen and what's not working anymore. And it's that like everybody can't have everything, but it has to feel like you've provided me all the offers, whether it's the Delta experience, right? They know exactly where you are. And that is really the digestible piece that we're seeing win and change the behavior because it's all the things we've said. It's targeted to me. It's personalized that I can quickly see. And I'm also going to get reinforcement communication and payout immediately when I'm successful. And, that's like when we go to our little gold and our medallion, it's all of that. I just think that the ask at the channel level right now is faster than ever and more precision targeted to that personalized level.
Okay. And let's get on to a really hot topic at the moment. Traditionally, we've been able to look at what's happened in the past. We've tried to see what that's going to mean for the future. AI is absolutely changing that. It's enabling us to really get to predictive analytics to understand what's likely to happen in the future. Josh, how are your clients leveraging AI to get a true picture, not from 3 months back, but what's going to happen 6 months hence?
Yeah, I mean, it's still early on, and I would say we still have customers that want faster horses, but we do have kind of this bleeding edge of customer who see the future. And what our customers are asking for us today is they want to operate in their own large language models. They want to use their Claude, their Gemini, and they simply want to use MCP. They want to be able to connect kind of their different data sources into one system for decision making. So you think about deal reg patterns, you think about billing, incentives, all these different data points you have all over your environment. I'm sure Lucas has a perspective on this, but you need that historical data to be able to model it. But I think what we're seeing is that there's this real split. There's old school kind of classic companies that want dashboards and they want to run their data with dashboarding and so forth, and then others that really see that vision. And when we get into some of these other concepts later on today, one of my big points is you have to be very selective with the technologies that you're investing in today. Make sure they have, demonstrable innovation, because you don't want to be stuck on the sidelines where if you're investing in platforms or systems that can't connect into a lot of these different models. So, I would say it's early times, but it's definitely a hot topic that comes up in most conversations today.
And Lucas, what are you seeing here?
Yeah, we're getting a bit of the same picture where we definitely have people that just love their little dashboards or their Excel sheets, and then definitely those that are like, how can we integrate these into solutions? How can I have it so that my sales representative gets an emailed report of their prospects the day before they make those calls? And it varies, and I think everyone kind of doesn't quite know right now, and I feel like that's a feeling that everyone knows, given how quickly it's changing. It's a little unclear of like what's going to be supported in the future and what's not. So I think that hesitation is leading a lot of people to kind of lay off the gas a little bit, because you don't want to invest in one of these kind of new AI companies and then to have them turn over like, 6 months later. But we are seeing a lot of kind of healthy integration with kind of larger providers, like the AWS, Googles of the world. I think that their kind of enterprise applications are probably a little slower in terms of getting these kind of solutions fully baked. And I think they're kind of waiting for the smaller kind of AI solution companies to either absorb them or die down. But we're definitely seeing clients want it. And I think where we're seeing it really useful for them is in terms of personalization. Where it used to take, teams of copywriters and kind of creative teams, we're seeing that you're able to kind of identify these groups, make these specialized comms, and reach out with these specialized and personalized kind of promotions and outreach that I think that participants really like. It's kind of nice when the program knows my name and knows what I like. So yeah, that's what I'm on the data side of what I've been seeing.
And looking to the future, Omar, what are your clients saying? Hey, this is what we want to do, and how successful are they on that journey?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we can all feel comfort in with what Lucas and Josh were saying is there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And a lot of my clients, when they ask us to help out with AI in their partner programs, incentives, it's because they've come up with a bunch of great use cases on the partner channel side. And then they go to IT, and IT is like, well, this is going to take me a couple of years to implement it, right? And the clients that I have that are actually starting to get these pilots out and get going, they're doing a few things. Number one, they're prioritizing all those use cases, and they're tying it to objectives. And the merging objectives I'm seeing is, number one, can we be smarter with incentive design? Can we drive better engagement with our partners? And can we have some operational efficiency to make our people better? And when you think about, just being smarter with design, we talked a lot about sensitivity analysis with different incentives and maybe even piloting things. You can use AI to build in some of that modeling capability and run, what you used to do with Monte Carlo simulations. Now an AI tool can help run a bunch of simulations and share sensitivity analysis for that. For the engagement piece, it's exactly what Lucas was saying. It's a lot of that personalized communications. What used to be weeks to get things into multiple languages is now hours to do that, right? And we've been kind of biting around the edges here around our partner community. A lot of times, my clients still kind of think about, my SIs. Well, the SIs now have all these little segments that I can target, and using AI to kind of build those personas around, maybe it's more regional SIs with an ERP focus versus my global digital transformation SIs. There's different messaging that you can do with that. And then lastly, operational efficiency. One of the great use cases I have one of my clients doing right now and rolled out from pilot to full launch is they have a lot of different data sources they're expecting their CAMs and PAMs to go to understand partner health. They're pulling it all together with the very simple prompt. And now those CAMs and PAMs can have richer conversations with their partners. And it's been a huge game changer. In fact, a very quick win that's had a lot more of their CAMs and PAMs bringing up use cases and helping prioritize. And that feedback loop is just creating a nice flywheel for them.
And Erica, the CFO, is bearing down. They're saying, prove the ROI. Don't tell me I recruited X number of new partners last month. I don't care. What are those partners actually doing for us? So if you look at your customers and helping them make the case for incentives, but also tailor their incentives so they are producing ROI, what are the key things that you're asking people to look at?
Yeah, so for us, I think we're rooting it back into that business value. So understanding what they're trying to hit, as well as show visibility to where they are on that. We should all be thinking through ROI at the very beginning of some of the suggestions and the design, because it's going to be a continual conversation. And I would say it's not just the CFO reaching out at the end of the year. It's a more of a weekly, I want to pulse, I want to see where we're going, we're successful. But it's really linking that overall incremental cost with the behavior that we're looking to change. And I think the big thing is, what is the cost is looking a little bit different. Is it time? Is it money? Is it the understanding of growing that in the different behaviors? So we're really looking at like what the credible baseline is to existing KPIs and how we're moving it. But I would say the ROI conversation is shifting from just like as you're looking to renewal and more around what is it right now and what could it be, and are we tracking on that? So it's all the areas that we've spoken about around showing that data and making it digestible. But it's absolutely something that's deeper than just, are we 1 for 1? Are we 1 for 3? Have we hit our goals? So it's a deeper conversation, but the big part for us, I would say, that's shifted is both the visibility and just the accessibility of the conversation and how often we're having it.
And Josh, what financial metrics, specifically what metrics are getting the CFO's attention today?
Yeah, so
what should I be saying?
Yeah, so I have a CFO track, a demo that I've created recently, and some of the dashboards that I've created that have hit really well, it's going to be cost per incremental dollar revenue. So for every dollar spent, how can we model and show either net new or retained revenue that it produced that otherwise would not have existed? And so a lot of, this requires looking at the whole kind of partner picture. How quickly did you onboard them? How quickly did they register their first deal? What deals were they involved in? Retention. It's taking all this data that Lucas and Omar and and Erica, we're all talking about all this data. You have to kind of think about it at scale. The other thing that I think's interesting, and I'll kind of unveil the curtain a little bit, is sometimes I'm selling to the channel chief or someone kind of a few tiers, lower than, like, let's say CFO. And for me, it's kind of showing what are the leading indicators, because ultimately I want our buyer to be very successful and to look good, be a rock star. So it's kind of peeling back the onion a little bit and saying, maybe in a phase zero portal launch, maybe your ROI initially is partner engagement, login. It's thinking about the different value that you can provide at different phases of implementation. But some of those are pretty clear.
Yeah, if I may, Josh, I think you bring up a great point. Is a lot of my channel clients, they've been very successful through the relationships they've built. They know intuition that if I get partners more engaged, then I can also get outcomes. But CFOs do not talk that language. So you have to really position what you're
Show me the
doing.
money. Show me the money.
Exactly. What is the language of the CFO? It's ROI. And I had a client recently where they were trying to get rebates into the program and they knew it was going to drive the behavior they wanted and the investment they needed. They asked me to come in with some benchmarks. We started talking to the CFO and he was like, guys, I know it's the right decision. You got to show me what the ROI is. And it was just a quick analysis on the uplift that got that approved, and they ultimately got it launched.
And we've talked a lot about, or a little bit about AI. The big thing with AI is not starting big, but starting small, proving it works. So, Erica, what are some of the programs that you've seen? How have people tested it? How have people tried it out? What advice have you got for people on the call who are clearly going to be under enormous pressure? Let's bring AI into these programs. What's it going to do for us? How do I pick on the right area to start? And how do I do an effective test?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say go back to what you're trying to achieve. And so for us, we had a recent client who was like, there's product is not moving in this area and I want to know why. So understanding that target and then really putting it into an incentive test allowed us to see, like, was it training? Was it retention? Was it that the product wasn't great in that specific niche? And so for us, it's really understanding those pieces to then, to your point, implement it, make it scalable, and make it relatively quick. And so we're looking at something that we can put in, we can test, we can get those insights and move on in a good way that it's not too long. So like our 90-day window, like from start to finish, allows us to still be actionable. And for us, that's crucial. But I think we talk a lot about machine learning and AI, and we have to sometimes pause our client conversations to say, but what are we trying to achieve? So take it back to that business that we're looking to solve for. And that's a tool that we utilize. But that's just one recent example of really trying to understand a product mix situation. And it was great. It allowed us to make a quick incentive change that allowed some additional training and certification and then reward appropriately on that behavior.
And Lucas, any advice on that one?
Yeah, I think this is just to echo what I think Omar and Erica said, start small, with what you want to replace. We've had clients that have just like lost a position, lost a copywriter, and they found a way to kind of replace or at least supplement what they used to do with AI, whether it's start small like that. And then I would echo that you should go with testing. Small tests work best with like small numbers, with AI costs as they are, right? They're kind of low now, but if anyone has experience with what those look like, they actually are not so low and they're getting not so lower as it keeps going. But yeah, focus on that and implementing testing. Another thing that I think across all of this to really think about is the role of, we do this a lot, and I think this is a growing kind of trend over the past 5 to 10 years, is the growing reliance on like measuring outcomes through like actual statistics and kind of, it's called causal inference in its broadest sense. But I think doing that instead of just kind of looking at before and after pictures, these programs are complex, right? They require kind of, it's not necessarily more advanced statistical modeling, it's not machine learning, but it is statistics at its core, and it really helps make decisions, right? Because not only can you see the uplift of, AI applications, but you can kind of project out, which I think ties into those ROI decisions, right? If you're able to be like, we're pretty confident that the lift is here, it's far easier to kind of extrapolate and kind of see those realized in the future.
And Omar, we have a terrible habit of we've got all these legacy systems, we're going to tinker around the edges, and in the process, we make it even more complicated than it was before. If you're going to start with a blank sheet of paper and really look at incentives, where should a company start? How should they go about really saying, hang on, stop. I need an incentive program for tomorrow, not for what was happening 5 years ago.
How many of us listening in would love to just have a blank slate on our programs? I think it's getting back down again, as we've said a couple times, is really understanding which partners are retargeting with these incentives, right? And I'm not just going to pick on, is it my VARs, is it my MSPs, is it my SIs, but even within those communities, right? Not every VAR is the same. We have our big Optivs and WWTs that act and look very different than our regional VAR out of, Dallas, Texas, for instance. And building incentives that, number one, meet them where their business is at and where they see, you fitting in their portfolio, as well as making sure that we're building incentives around the different personas at their companies, right? If I'm a smaller MSP, I might be both the owner and the seller. So, having incentives around that might be completely different than a multi-regional partner where I have an executive team that has maybe a security center of excellence versus their seller and region. And so I think that if you take that mindset of who we're trying to target, what behavior we're trying to incentive, then you can build a program that's built around how you can grow your business.
Excellent. And Erica, we have a great question coming in. How are you defining partner health beyond the business partners drive with you? What additional business insights are you using, and how are you getting those insights? Where are they coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we touched on this a little bit, but I would say like the usage of the actual system. So like logins and understanding on if they're driven there, that's a big piece for us because if you don't go, you don't know. So that is something that allows us to just redefine if we need to engage differently. The other piece that we've chatted about a little bit is around the voice of the customer. If there's areas there we should be doing and close rates. Just because like if we're educating and we're certifying and you're coming to the site and we're still not selling, that is where that behavior comes into play, where yes, we're still measuring volume, but we're also wanting to understand how to be intentional. And I think it was Josh, you had a great case study on defining when we can tweak that. That is where the metrics are coming into play. Like what's the behavior trigger at the core? How can we make it justifiable to make change, to Omar's point on a new incentive, but understanding that core problem, which I know we keep going back to, is crucial. But I would say engagement, usage, and if we're winning are all areas that we're watching and monitoring for change and incentive spiffs.
And we're almost out of time. So I'm just going to ask the same question to each of you to finish off with. And I'll start with you, Josh. 3 years from now, what incentive design decisions will separate the companies growing profitably from those still paying partners for the wrong behaviors? What do I need to be looking at now so that I get it right moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, one sort of concept that I mentioned today is kind of the more things change, the more kind of they stay the same. And one thing that I would stress is you do not want to be left on the sidelines. You don't want to be left behind. And I think as you're evaluating some solutions, you're evaluating tools, you really have to dig into the investments that you're making in the technologies. One, to make sure that in a year from now, you're not going to be maxing out, hitting a ceiling. You really want, as you're seeing demonstrations and going through kind of the blocking and tackling of kind of solution selection, really put an emphasis on demonstrable innovation. Make sure that what you're hearing and what you think it's going to do actually does those things. And I also think that there's going to be an emphasis in the future, and I'm seeing this with integration customers and things, where there's definitely going to be a world not that far into the distance where we will be managing Salesforce, your PRM, your ERP, and everything through single interfaces and kind of gearing towards what that's going to look like for your team but also potentially in a world where partners are operating in similar kind of kind of instances. And I'll kind of throw this, to Lucas, just generally, never have I seen data be so valuable, but also in a world where it's now so easy to bring data together, and there's so many opportunities to leverage this intelligence in much better ways overall. So I would say really put an emphasis on what you're investing in and really fine tune that.
And Lucas, as Josh set you up for this one, let me bring you in next on this.
Yeah, I mean, I just really echo that. I think that's one of our key friction points that we've seen with clients is they want to do all this cool stuff. They want to do the personalization, right? They want to make the program feel and like use AI in those implementations, and they just can't because they're with like legacy providers that only allow them to download certain parts of their program, and they can't like upload lists of who to target. And I think that picking a platform and the ability to be kind of flexible to changes, even if it's not perfect, I think that that's really what's going to set people apart. And those people that are kind of stuck in those like legacy programs, I think are going to have a rough time both kind of adapting their program, especially I think as Erica said, as insights are kind of rapid and these programs are changing rapidly, right? It's gonna hinder you overall. So I think that the flexibility is honestly the like one thing that we've noticed and that we've struggled with just helping clients with.
And Erica.
Yeah, I'd say everyone has great answers. I hate being the third, Omar. You're gonna have to be the fourth on this one, so find something additional. But I would say looking at that next 3 years, really, we're no longer gonna overhaul every 3 years. We're looking at incentives that are going to be piloted, measured, refined, and scalable immediately, and they're going to continuously evolve. And I don't think that's going away. So I think to Lucas's point, intentionality on what that partner looks like from a provider standpoint, as well as understanding where you want to be, will be crucial because it's just not going to be that slow anymore. It's just far too fast. And I would just echo always going back to the right behaviors and not just the outcomes, because with evolution, you can't just focus on the outcomes.
And
Love
Omar,
it.
final word on the topic.
Yeah, I know. I think it's excellent. There's four things that come to mind for me. Number one is market competitive in this fast-paced AI-driven world is not looking left and right at your narrow peer set. It's really looking at all the other vendors your partners are utilizing and working with. And so broaden your mindset and what that means to be a good vendor partner. The second thing is build incentives not based off what you think you want your partners to do, but really on where their capabilities are going and where their business is trending. So you can meet them not where the puck is at right now, but where their puck is going. And then the third one is use your full, gamut of levers here. You have tiering, you have front-end incentive, you have back-end rebates, you have seller spiffs. Think about how you use all those, not in isolation, but as an orchestration. And lastly, support that with the right tools, the right people, and coordinated effort going forward.
Excellent. Josh, Erica, Lucas, Omar, thank you so very, very much. I certainly learned a lot during the session. I hope everyone else did too. And thank you so much for your contributions. Really, really appreciate it.